Well, it's been a couple weeks since I made my last video, and I have been very busy doing work around my house, and I am still busy. And when I get done with this video, I got about 7 or 8 hours of work in front of me before I can relax. Which is why I'm making this video. For me, it's early in the morning, like 6:30, 7 o'clock, right in there. And so I'll be able to let the computer do its thing while I'm out working in my shop. There's several things that have been brewing that I have on my iPad that I wanted to talk about. But I think the first and foremost thing I want to talk about is an extremely delicate topic. And it's about the assassination of Charlie Kirk, but it actually plays into what I had on my iPad a week and a half before he was killed. And it's kind of ironic, not ironic, but it's kind of bizarre because what I want to talk about in regards to his assassination is the exact lesson. And I've told you, people that know me know that I used to be a devout Mormon. When I say used to, I became a Mormon for 35 years. That was just my religious, spiritual, call it whatever you want, but it was the pathway that I chose to get closer to God. And what happened for me, and I am certain it has happened for all of you that watch this, watch my channel, you're in the same boat. Whereas you've tested all the faiths and religions and et cetera, and come away wanting for more, or seeing the corruption or the problems associated with those faiths and religions. And after trying several, you realize, oh man, I'm the Lone Ranger out here, man. There's no actual religion, church, or organization that properly depicts what when I say I mean yourself is asking the same question, that I would want to closely align with for the rest of my life, because they are lacking in certain areas. And so you're completely and utterly lost. And I think that's why you have gravitated, or were, dare I say, divinely guided to find this channel. Because now you are listening to me because you feel that you align your thoughts and emotions, not emotions, but your logic and everything else with the same thing that I talk about. And that's why you watch this video feed that I put out every now and then. Anyways, in dealing with this Charlie Kirk thing, the irony of it is the very last lesson that I taught as a devout Mormon, I was in the process at the time, after 35 years, of pulling away from my membership in the church. Of course, it was divine, though, meaning it was divine that I was pulling away. It was a struggle. It was a spiritual battlefield for me, because I I definitely put my spiritual path in the hands of God. I didn't know what direction I should go. I didn't know where God should lead me. I didn't know the proper path. Nobody does. Nobody does. And I'm here to tell you personally, you do not know. You will never. The whole concept of samsara is that you keep doing the same thing over and over, life after life after life, and you have been doing this for 1 billion fucking years. Now, is it because you are like growing and developing? Yes. But in addition to that, you have been doing the same thing because you depend on your own strengths. You depend upon your own intellect. You depend upon your own intuition. Are these things important? Certainly they are. Everything I just mentioned is important. If you do not utilize those aspects of your essence and character, you're not going to find the path to becoming one with God. You will not. You have to use those. But in addition, it's almost like a paradox, because in addition to that, you have to completely and utterly surrender your grip, your knowledge, wisdom, your intellect, everything that it is that you depend upon yourself. You have to surrender. You have to give it up. You have to lay it on the table. And what you have to do is pleading with God. And you can't do this if you're living a sinful life, by the way. You have already have to have created your life in such a way that you are living a pure life as best as you possibly can. If you see something that you consider a sin, stop doing it. If you think there's a better way of doing things, then do it. In moderation. And you must follow that path for I don't know how many years, but you must do it to the point where you have become that person, rather than you're forcing yourself to follow a path that you think is a righteous path or a path worthy to be labeled as a man or woman of God. You have to be able to do that first before pleading your case with God, praying for guidance and direction, humbling yourself to the absolute point where there is nothing left in you that wants to take control. When I say wants to take control, I said that's the paradox. You also have to be extremely powerful, extremely strong-willed, extremely self-confident. But at the same time, lay all those aside and recognize that all of those strengths will lead you on the path of samsara forever. That the only way to become one with God is to have all those qualities sitting in reserve. They already have to be there. If you don't have those qualities, you're not going to become one with God. But they have to be set in reserve. You have to humble yourself and plead with God. And when I say God, could that be the Christ that was portrayed by Jesus Mind you, Jesus was an avatar of Christ. Just like Vishnu was an avatar of Christ. But you have to plead for guidance and direction. Place 100% of your strengths and your willpower and everything on the side, knowing that you cannot become one with God if you depend on yourself. And yet you have to maintain all those strengths to become one with God. But you have to take all of those and utilize them over here. And what do I mean by utilizing them over here? That's what it takes to humble your ego. That's what it takes to destroy your ego. God is not going to destroy your ego. The only person capable of destroying your ego is you, your essence. The strengths and willpower and all the things I just mentioned, those are used to humble and control your ego to the point where you become the most gentle, loving, kind-hearted, childlike soul asking and praying for guidance and direction. Are you asking the Christ? You could, but you have to ask Brahma, the God that Jesus prayed to. You must go to that God. Can you go to that God directly without invoking the guidance and direction of Christ? No. Can you go directly to Brahma because you're ignorant of Christ? Yes. At a future lifetime, if you're not aware in this lifetime, you'll understand the concept and the teachings and the nature of Christ. Christ in his last dispensation, where he actually walked and talked as a physical human being on the planet, as far as we know, was 2,000 years ago in the avataric body of Jesus. So you can read, you can study, you can do the best you can to try to understand the nature of Jesus. But everything he taught, he said, is a mirror of his Father in heaven, or Brahma. So whatever it is you learn from Jesus, that is a mirror image of Brahma. Now, can you depend upon the writings in the Bible and New Testament and all that kind of stuff? To a certain degree, because that's all you have to start with. But if you take it as the Word of God, like so many Christians do, you will be led astray. You have to understand that you cannot be a scholar of the Scriptures and think that you are going to find the actual truth, because you're not. It is always corrupt. If you listen to me, I might be the best source for the truth of this God on the world today, in the world today. I might be. Let's assume that I am. Let's assume that I am the closest thing there is to the actual truth of Brahma. Let's assume that I am the greatest living teacher alive that can tell you what Jesus taught. Let's assume all these things are true. At the same time, I'm going to tell you crystal clear right now, if you follow me and depend upon me for all of your guidance and direction, because you have confidence in me, you will not become one with God. Why is that so? Because I am doing the same thing that Jesus did. I am telling you straight up that the only way to become one with God is for you to depend upon yourself. Now, I just refuted what I said earlier, because I said you have to surrender everything. But think about this. If you surrender everything and you ask humbly for guidance and direction, how are you going to get that guidance and direction? At what form is it going to come? How do you know that it's true when you actually do have inspiration or intuition? How do you know that it's true? I will tell you. You won't know. You're never going to know. You absolutely must go through the same trials and tribulations as everyone that has ever found God. You must go through the same path. You must follow the same course. You must be tried in every way, shape, or form, just like everyone that has ever found God. It isn't easy. When you get inspiration, you're going to have to trust it. In Christianity, it's called faith. What is faith? It's a pure knowledge that has no way to be substantiated. It is pure truth that can only be proven after you've walked the path. So if you walk the path and it's a wrong path and you have to backtrack, maybe you have to do that 100 times. It will not be easy, but that's the path. So that's how you become one with God. Now, what does this have to do with the Charlie Kirk thing? And what does it have to do with what I was saying, my very last lesson when I was a Mormon, was the lesson I'm going to teach you right now. The very last lesson I taught as a Mormon, after 35 years, I was my calling in the church was, I was what they called the high priest quorum teacher. I taught spiritual lessons to the bishops, to the stake presidents, to all the high priests. That was my calling, to teach them. I taught for 1 week, another person taught another week. I taught the next week, they taught that week. I was a full-time firefighter, so I had plenty of time in my off-duty to study the lesson manual. And when I say the lesson manual, I did not stick to that entirely. I'm not going to say the exact same things that I did in that lesson, but I will tell you crystal clear, there was about, let's just take a wild hunch, there was maybe 35 high priests in that group. Out of the 35, one supported me. The other 34, they condemned me. They felt so uneasy. They wanted me out of that classroom. They wanted me to shut my fucking mouth and leave. They made it crystal clear. They were upset. Only one person supported me. He happened to be the mayor of the town that I lived in Oregon. He was the mayor of, the town was called Happy Valley in suburb of Portland. And he was the only one. He was a lawyer too. Why he supported me, I don't know. But the lesson I taught was, if you engage in sinful practice, It could be in any form. And I said, I specifically started hitting on concepts of watching, well, the high priest quorum were men. If you watch pornography in any form on the internet, you are living a life of sin. If you engage in anything like that and you don't repent and change, you are living a life of sin. If you justify what you're doing, you're compounding the concept of living in sin. If you do that, you have cut yourself off from the direct link to God, in that you will not receive divine inspiration to support you on your spiritual path. And so if you happen to be a bishop, for instance, one of the jobs of a bishop is to give guidance and direction to the members of that particular church building. They called them wards. There's 400 members in a ward. And one of the things was that the bishop has to discipline people that are living a life of sin. They have to teach them, guide them, give them direction. He oversees the Sunday school teaching, who needs to have this, that, and everything else. That's what he needs to do. It's absolutely critical. I have a dry throat, I'm sorry. It is absolutely critical that if you're going to do that, that you are tapped into the spirit guidance and direction of Brahma, of Christ, so that you can properly guide and direct. And here I am teaching the lesson that if you are engaged in pornography, you do not have that connection to God. Therefore, the only guidance and direction that you're giving the parishioners that you are teaching is entirely from your own knowledge and wisdom. You are not giving inspired teachings and guidance and direction. And of course, can you imagine how that would come across to a bunch of older men that are high priests that, well, as high priests, they're all in leadership positions in one way or another, damn near. Can you imagine how that lesson came across? Not well, obviously, because apparently all of them were engaged in one way or another in sinful practice. I mean, why else would they react so oppositional to the lesson I was teaching? And I backed it up with all sorts of information. I studied that lesson for weeks before I presented it, which I always did. Now I'll apply it to the situation that took place with Charlie Kirk and tie this all together for you. Why? They've already caught the person, they say. They've already said that the person happens to be a person that was living with a transgender person. We can leave that concept right there and let's not even talk about that anymore, because that's not the part of the lesson. Let's talk about it in a different way that I haven't heard anyone talk about so far. Let's imagine, of course this isn't true, but let's imagine that the way Charlie Kirk Kirk died was that a rock ricocheted off the tire of a car, and the rock hit him in the throat and killed him. That in fact, that's the way he was killed. Okay, let's go with that. That way we're not pointing the finger at transgenders and gay people and all this sort of stuff. The reaction from millions of people across the nation, probably tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of people across the world, was celebrating his death. That is evil. That is sinful. That is an eye-opener that is so profound. That is the thing that is my teaching today that I'm getting at. Why were so many millions of people celebrating his death? I will tell you why. And it isn't for any of the reasons that people are saying. Because people don't understand the root cause of what's going on. And I'm going to tell you exactly what the root cause is. The LGBTQ, is that what it is? Anyways, gays, lesbians, transgender, all of that kind of stuff. That is a perversion of the nature of becoming one with God. Everybody can say, well, yeah, but they were born that way. Doesn't matter how they were born. A lot of people are born with a propensity to steal. And then they control that urge to steal. A lot of people are born with a propensity of anger. And then they control their anger. Doesn't matter whether they were born that way or not. It does not alter the fact that it is living in sin, because 100% of the concept of LGBTQ plus transgenderism and all that kind of stuff, 100% of it is about sex. It's about identifying with the physical human body. It is the absolute opposite of spirituality. Spirituality has nothing to do with the physical body. Everyone engaged in that is engaged in identifying with the physical body. In sex, that's what it's all about. Every single one of them. Now, when you choose to live that lifestyle and engage in it, you are living a life of sin. Okay, well, Jesus says through the atonement, everyone can be forgiven. Sure, you can. But what if you don't ask for forgiveness? Because instead, you go, wait a second, I was born this way. Therefore, there's nothing wrong with me living this way. Then you're denying the spiritual connection to God that is telling your heart and soul, this is not correct. And then you believe that you're doing the right thing because you've convinced yourself that living that lifestyle is good. And then some people go all the way to transgenderism. Now those people go to the extreme. They're no longer just numb to the spiritual inspiration that would come to them from God. They're not only numb, but they're mad. They're pissed off at God. It's like, how dare you fucking make me this way, God? I hate you. And and now I have to transgender. So not only did they start and pull themselves away from God, but now they hate God for making them the way they say they're made. And now they've not only further cut themselves off from the inspiration of God, but now they have aligned themselves with the spiritual nature of Satan. And that is a result of why tens of millions of people around the world celebrate the death of a person that means no harm. All that person was doing is the same thing I'm doing, teaching the truth. Was he right about everything? Not only no, he wasn't, but hell no, he wasn't. I'm sure he was wrong about lots of things. So what? It doesn't matter about him. What matters is about the spiritual nature of those that celebrate his death. That's what matters. And you can see that that is evil. That is a disconnect from the nature of God and a connection to the nature of Satan. Can they all repent and become one with God? Absolutely. And that is because the nature of your essence is dynamic. What does that mean? What does dynamic mean? It means that it has the potential of anything. It is entirely the nature of free will. Regardless of there being a Satan or a Christ, one being the opposite of the other, regardless, it can go in this camp and then go in this camp. It, meaning you, your essence, is free will. It can always change, but it cannot change locations without changing the nature of it. In other words, you can't live this lifestyle and expect to be over here. You have to change the way you are if you want to be over here. I've told you many times over the years, the population of this planet is probably over 50% are soulless creations of Satan, and in addition to that, demonically possessed, and in addition to that, absolute demons. What's the percentage of the people on this earth that are not in the camp of Satan, that are entirely in the camp of Christ or Brahma, or wanting to become one with God, or of the heart and soul nature of love? What's the percentage? I don't know. 1/3? I don't know. But you have to know, if you read anything, that what is the Kali Yuga, in which everyone agrees that understands anything, that we are in the Kali Yuga. And in Christianity, everyone knows that we are in the end days. Everyone knows that if you're a Christian, you read the concept of the Revelations, that we are now living in a time that is worse than the concept of Sodom and Gomorrah. I mean, this is proof positive just with the assassination the other day that we are worse than Sodom and Gomorrah. How is that possible? Because the God of this world is Satan, not Christ. The God of this universe, I believe, is Satan. not Christ. Because think about it, a universe, in your mind, not in mine, but in your mind, it's probably a huge, vast, extremely large, complex creation, and blah, 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 blah. But that's not true in my mind. I've had a glimpse of the creation of Brahma. And I can see that this universe is such a tiny speck compared to the creation of Brahma that it's just, it's infinitesimal. The entire universe, which explains why the entire universe is such a horrible, incompatible with our existence. It's too hot, too cold, too radioactive. Hell, we can't, as human beings, we can't even live on this planet without clothing and, we're not like the rest of the living creatures on this planet. Were our bodies manipulated and created by former fallen gods, Anunnaki, this, that, and everything? I don't know. Probably. I mean, what else explains why our bodies are so foreign to this reality on this planet? It can go much deeper than that, but I want you to recognize that the concept of what I'm teaching right now is that I'm teaching you to stand on your own 2 feet. And standing on your own 2 feet means that you are the one that takes the power and authority of your ego and lays it down. And you are the one that is responsible to become one with God, if indeed that's what you want. Because it doesn't matter what the outcome is of yourself. You are always the one in control. You cannot blame Satan for being in hell, and you can't give credit to God for being one with him in heaven. You can thank God for providing everything to allow you to become one with God, but you are the one that goes there. He doesn't drag you up there. Jesus didn't do anything to drag you up to becoming one with him. He taught you as I am teaching you. He did what it's labeled the atonement, but it's hard for me to talk about the atonement because it is so far-reaching. It in reality has no effect upon your spiritual soul until the very last rung of the ladder of becoming one with God. That's where the atonement comes into play. It doesn't have anything to do with your daily life of forgiveness of sins and all this. That's beside the point. The nature of the atonement is so complex unless you get a vision and revelation from God directly, you're not going to understand the concept of the atonement. That's how deep it is. The greatest spiritual teachers in Christianity that have ever written upon the subject of the atonement don't understand it. Sure, they understand a part of it, but that part of it that they do understand isn't what the purpose of the atonement was, because it doesn't make any sense. I'm looking at my notes. I covered everything except for the last thing. And everything has to do with this topic that I'm talking about. This last thing I wanted to cover is something that I need you to register in your mind, okay? Everything I'm teaching you, you're on your own. You have to depend on your own. Everything I'm telling you is exactly what Satan did, or Shiva. Exactly the same thing. And he has opposed Brahma. So it's like, well, I don't want to become one with Satan, so I'm not going to do the same thing as Satan. Actually, yes, you are. Whether you know it or not, you are going to do the same thing. Now, is that what Jesus did? Is that what Christ did? Yeah, he did the same thing too. It would be the equivalent of saying, oh, this person drank water and ate food. Therefore, you are going to become exactly like Hitler, because Hitler drank water and ate food. Because if he didn't drink water and eat food, he would have died. Therefore, if you drink water and eat food, you'll become one with Hitler. Well, you'll also become one with Krishna, because Krishna ate food and drank water. Oh, wait a second. So did Jesus. So you'll become exactly like Jesus if you eat food and drink water. What I'm saying is, whether you realize it or not, you are on your own. Whether you realize it or not, you will make your own choices with your free will to become one with God or one with Satan. If you decide not to become one with God, you will become one with Satan. You could say, well, no, I don't choose either. Well, if you don't choose Brahma, you default to Satan, whether you like it or not. You can argue, but it doesn't matter. That is the truth. So it's kind of scary to think that, well, ye gads, if I follow this path of being on my own, depending upon my own inspiration, intelligence, wisdom, and everything else, I could actually become like Satan. Yeah, you could. You could. You have trillions of years ahead of you. But I believe that we are getting toward the end of the Kali Yuga, or according to Christianity, the end days. Now, what does that mean? All that means is it's a dispensation. That doesn't mean it's the end and now you're going to become one with God and you live in heaven for all time and eternity. It doesn't mean that. What it means is this dispensation is nearing an end. How does the end come about? I don't know for sure, but probably it ends with a cataclysmic 99.999% of the population of the earth dying. It happens all the time. And I think we're nearing that point. So if I were you, knowing that, the end might come within the next several years or 10 years or 15 years or maybe next year, who knows? I don't know. But knowing that, and knowing that you've gotten to the point where you are right now today, recognize that if you're agreeing with what I'm saying, you should feel glad, happy, that it's like, wow, I've accomplished something by getting closer to God than I have in the past billions or trillions of years. I've gotten so damn close. I am so grateful that I get to live another 24 hours and I get to learn a little more truth. Because you will be reborn again. And if you are basically in the same camp as taught by Buddha, in other words, well, I'm going to end the cycle of samsara and I don't have to be born again. Okay, but that doesn't mean you're not going to be born again in some other reality. And like I said, if this universe, not if, since this universe is just a speck of the creation of Brahma, you will be reborn in some other universe of some sort or some kind. And are you going to remember all the details that you are here? Probably not, because it's irrelevant. But what you will remember is the essence of what you are right now. You will remember the essence of your love, the essence of your kindness, of all these things. Which is why, if you're ending the wheel of samsara and you're not going to be reborn again, it is because you have gravitated beyond the need to exist in this hellish existence anymore. And when I say this hellish existence, how do I rightly feel about it? I have the faith and I'm grateful to God that I am here. I am grateful to God that I've had the opportunity to exist in this hellish environment amongst the demons, fallen angels, call it whatever you will. It has taught me lessons that I don't even know what those lessons are. But I have faith and love for God that I don't condemn because life is so hard. So I'm going to close by telling you I love you. And when I tell you that I love you, I would hope that what you're realizing is that is something that is foreign to this reality. You may think it's normal. It is not. The people celebrating the death of Charlie Kirk, they don't understand what love is. They may think they do. They do not. You, I would hope, understand the nature of love. And what is love? Love is a friendship. It is a gravitation from one individual to another based upon love. And that same gravitational pull will get you to becoming one with God. Notice, I never talked about enlightenment in this particular video. Enlightenment is just a byproduct of becoming awake and aware of what everything is and why it is and how it's happening. It's a byproduct. Is it just an awareness? No, it's well beyond aware. It's like awareness is so infinitesimal compared to what enlightenment is. But don't fixate upon enlightenment. You will become enlightened if you just simply follow the path of love. I don't know what else to say. I think that's it for today. I hope the best for you. I pray for you. Don't become angry. There's what they call a righteous anger. I don't know if that's true. I would say protect yourself if we truly are at the end of this dispensation. Recognize that things are getting bad. And so protect yourself. Do what you have to. Don't just go, well, God will protect me. Well, did God protect Charlie Kirk? Well, no. Did God protect Jesus from hanging on a cross? No. God is not going to step in and circumvent evil. So you're going to have to stand on your own 2 feet if you want to live another day. What does that entail? I don't know. It's different for everyone. But you do have to stand on your own 2 feet. You do have to protect yourself and your family, your loved ones, your friends. But be careful, because all the laws and all the police and the governments are out to protect the demons, not you. As a byproduct of doing their job, they might come to your assistance, but that is not the nature of their job. It is to protect the demons. So be careful. That's what I'm telling you. Be wise. And with that, I'm going to close. Thank you for watching. I love you, and I will talk to you later. Bye.